All right, so a very warm afternoon to all my students. Welcome to the YouTube channel of Get Set Law by IMS. I'm your verbal ability mentor, Sanjana ma'am, and today let's solve another session wherein we are going to solve two passages. This time it will be on logical reasoning, right? And the passages that I'm bringing to you are very much modeled on CLAT level passages also. And this is practice session 6. As you must be knowing, we're already doing, weekly practice sessions. 5 sessions have already happened, two on legal, two on English language, and one on logical reasoning. This would be the second session on logical reasoning. So let's just wait. Let's wait for everybody to join. And with that, we can dive deep into the session. So maybe a minute, and then we can begin. I do have some interesting passages today as well. So all of you read the passage thoroughly as and when I will be presenting it on the screen. And then we'll discuss the questions also. You can take insights that you can then apply to your mocks, respective tests that you must be taking to the actual examination also. I'll also begin my screen sharing as well. So I think I do have some students to begin the session with. Let's start with today's first passage. So we have two passages and we'll focus on the first passage now. So again, passages of such a nature, this one and the passage that is to come, going forward, are very much having a tendency to be asked in the logical reasoning section. If you go by CLAT 24 and 25, we didn't have a lot of narrative slash fiction passages in the logical reasoning section. So they are the purview of the English language section only. So let's start reading it. So this passage is focusing on marshes and how they can get impacted because of a rise in temperature. So this is the overall theme of the passage. Okay. It says marshes have one thing in common, most of them, not all marshes. So always be mindful of the quantifiers. So students, what I'm trying to do here is also teach you how to read the passage summarily, right? So it becomes easier. You don't really have to read everything word for word, right? So their plants grow better in a warm climate, which means whenever you have warmer temperatures, right? Now, there have been multiple field studies about this, and scientists have found at least one of the plant species they studied, they put on extra weight when temperatures rose, which actually points that the plants grow better in warm climate, right? So this is an encouraging sign, right? Now the problem is, and ma'am, why are you saying there's a problem is because we already have a but here. The story has a darker underside. You see, students, I'm not really focusing on this statement. I will come back to it if I feel there's a need for me to verify this. Okay. So now we're trying to highlight a stark contrast that this might have darker side to it, which is that just as rising temperatures, the speed of plant growth, this is already established here, right? However, they could also speed up their decay, making some marshes more vulnerable to collapse at sea levels rise. Let me tell you, are we saying all marshes? No, we're just saying some marshes more vulnerable to collapse as sea levels rise. And it's a mystery no one has solved, which means we're still looking into the factors, the reasons as to why this happens. Okay, now this bit of the passage, this is actually more about, a description of how this happens. And let's read it quickly so that we feel confident. It says, when soil heats up, microbes underground become more active and they decompose dead material more quickly, okay, and release once trapped carbon back into the atmosphere, right? Now, extra plant growth in itself can be a problem. Why? Because extra plant growth can also jolt the microbes awake because as plant roots extend deeper into the soil, they inject it with oxygen that enhances decay. So plant growth in itself can lead to decay. So this is another thing that is being established in the passage. Now this statement is really important. Growth and decay are twin faces of the same coin, which means if there is growth, it's possible decay might happen too. Okay, at least this is what I understand from it. At least that is the conventional wisdom, but in reality, this question of what makes marshes rot is much murkier, right? So scientists attempting to model decomposition by microbes have found different answers, which means there is no one singular uniform answer as to why this phenomenon is happening. Okay. So rising temperatures can also change how microbes grow indirectly by changing the types of plants on a marsh. All of these statements, all of these bits of pieces that I have highlighted in red, I feel that if we use these, we can answer most of the questions correctly. Okay, so that's not the end to the passage. There's more. And marshes are also transforming. Whether in Maryland, where the invasive reed Phragmites australis reed is rapidly taking over, which means marshes are transforming. An example is given. So one is that of Maryland, and the other is that of the marshes in Florida, where mangroves are displacing salt marshes thanks to warmer winters. All right. Now, what these transformations mean for how marshes store carbon and for their ultimate survival, it remains to be seen, which means we still do not have concrete evidence which will tell us if this is actually going to happen or not, right? Because the last line, when you read, it's always important to read the conclusion of the passage, that how marshes will react to a warmer world. Scientists need experiments, that manipulate temperatures in the field, something that so far has been scarce, right? That's all there is to the passage, right? We're talking about the impact of rising temperatures on marshes and the plants found on marshes. So there is a positive to it, that some growth in plants have also been registered. And the negative is that obviously it can also lead to simultaneous decay. But nothing concrete has been established so far as if, is this going to impact all the marshes or only a couple of them? That being said, let's focus on the questions one by one. That's all there is to the passage. You need not take more than 1.5 to 2 minutes to read and understand it. I will keep on reiterating these points throughout. The first question. So, what's the relationship between rising temperatures and plant growth in marshes? This should be very easy to answer, students, right? Rising temperatures will help with plant growth, or it could also lead to a decay, right? These are the two conclusions we have drawn from the passage. So, is it true if we choose option A that they do not have any effect? Absolutely not, right? Plant growth in marshes decreases with rising temperatures. Actually, the opposite is mentioned in the passage, right? That plant growth actually increases, so we cannot say it decreases. Rising temperatures promote plant growth in marshes. I did highlight this while explaining the question, while reading out the question to you. I did highlight this. That makes C the best option choice, right? Again, to choose D would be a wrong thing to do. Nowhere is it given that plant growth is not related or unrelated to temperature changes. It's literally option D and A are literally the same. It's just that they have been phrased in different language or words. The second one, this too, I feel, can be tricky, but it's still easy to solve if you just believe in your understanding of the passage. It says likely to happen. What is likely to happen to marshes as sea levels rise due to the increase in decay caused by rising temperatures? Now, the thing is, when you read the passage towards the end, it's clearly given that how this is going to impact the marshes remains to be seen. It's not yet set in stone. Nothing concrete has been found out yet. Okay, so saying that almost all marshes, you see, you remember the rule of quantifiers whenever you have options that contain all, always, only, solely, absolutely. I wouldn't say eliminate such options blindly, but at least treat them as red flags, be very cautious around them. So this will tell us that this is actually not stated in the passage that almost all marshes will collapse, okay? Because I had highlighted that part. It says some marshes will collapse, right? Not all. So A is out. A small proportion of all marshes. Where in the passage have you said anything about the percentage or proportion of marshes that are likely to collapse? Nothing. Nothing has been given. So P is out, right? Now, C says a passage doesn't provide enough information to answer this question, and that should be the correct option. We do not have sufficient data in the passage, right? So this should make C the correct option choice. Now, you might be surprised because generally, we have been wired to think that the lengthier an option choice, it should be the correct option. But that's not how it works. You will always have to go back to the passage and do your fact checking thoroughly, right? D says they will transform from one form to another, not all the time and not definitely, right? Without being significantly impacted in any other way. This in itself is quantified in a way. Don't choose D. This is not given anywhere in the passage. If it's given, you let me know in the comment section. If ever you have a doubt with any of the question and the explanation. So that makes C the correct option for this question. Take a look at the next one. Now, this is another way of asking an inference-based question, right? So which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? Marshes grow better in cooler climate. What happens in cooler climates? This is not talked about beyond the scope, out. Rising temperatures always lead to an increase. Again, Why it's easy to eliminate B is because A, you already have a quantifier. B, you can go back and just check and see for yourself that this is nowhere resonating in the passage. C says rising temperatures can speed up the decay of plants in marshes. And this is exactly what forms a part of the main idea, right? An important part, a crucial part. So C here is a correct option. D says the transformation of marshes is not a cause for concern. It definitely can be a cause for concern. If there is transformation in marshes, it might lead to a transformation in ecological balance or the system, even though that's a slightly far-fetched idea. But to say that it's not a cause for concern is also going to be really extreme, right? So D2 is out. Let's take a look at the next question. Now, what is a connection between extra plant growth and the activity of microbes in the soil? Extra plant growth reduces the activity of microbes? No, actually, the activity of microbes, if anything, in the passage, as has been stated, increases. So can we say it reduces? No. Can we say it has no effect? No, right? Extra plant growth increases, and there you have the correct option. I had just written down the keyword here, right? How easy it was to solve question 4, right? Changes the types of microbes. Students, if you can find this information, then only we will mark D, but you will not find it. Like, so D is wrong again. We'll take a look at the next question now. Now, this will look like it's going to be a cumbersome question. It isn't. It isn't. If you just, just solve it smartly, you'll understand that it can be easy too. So it says, which of the following would help the scientists determine whether marshes would collapse at higher temperature? Let me decode this argument here. Marshes would collapse at higher temperature is because it leads to decay in plant growth, right? So if we choose an option which shows and which can help us to determine that, higher the temperature, higher or proportional would be the decay in plant growth, right? And proportional would be the increase in plant growth, both of these things. It can help us cement this argument. This is a method of evaluation based question. I specifically wanted to present this today because I thought it's important for us to learn new things as well. Okay. Actually, for this particular question, the best option choice is B. Rising temperatures have a directly proportional impact on plant growth, dissemination of fresh seeds, and on the rate of decay. Because if we can prove this, it has a directly proportional impact, which means if a temperature is rising, then impact on plant growth is also rising. Dissemination of fresh seeds is also happening. And the rate of decay is also, happening at a similar pace, which tells us that yes, we can prove that rising temperature is going to have a negative impact. Rest of the options are actually very one-sided. Look at A. Please don't mark A simply because it seems like it's the lengthiest option. In fact, A says that rising temperatures have a directly proportional impact on plant growth, while the decay of dead organic material peaks at 33 and declines thereafter. If it declines thereafter, then we cannot with absolute, conviction say that rising temperature will lead to an increased decay, because the decay is only happening up till at 33 degrees Celsius, but after that it declines. So it does not conclusively tell us if anything, it like helps us negate it, right? So it's not that potent enough. C says rising temperatures have a directly proportional impact on plant growth, but a very slight increase the rate of plant death, which in turn leads to increase in decaying organic matter. This is what I like to call a distorted option choice, right? They're just putting different ideas taken from the passage and, collating it into a statement here, which has no relevance to this question, right? And if you say that increase of temperature, plant growth, and plant decay is expected to halt at some point in the future, then how is this still helpful? It does not give us any concrete information. When you want to solve a method of evaluation based question, you need an option which will help you establish something concretely, and it is best happening in option B, and mark option B as a correct option choice for this particular question. Let's take a look at the last question for this particular passage, all right? Now, again, an inference question, because, the more the inference questions, the better it is. Inference questions, main idea questions in CLAT, like for both of EL and logical reasoning, they always reign supreme, right? So which of the following, you can infer from the passage. Salty marshes are displacing mangroves in some parts of the world. I think we have only given the example of Florida. So we can't say in some parts of the world. Like that's a very definite option to choose. So cancel A. Various decomposition models have yielded similar results. Scientists have found different answers. You go back to the passage, right? Pause the video, rewind. You'll see that I've highlighted that part specifically. So to say that they have yielded similar results is, choosing the contradictory opinion here. Warmer winters are responsible for the displacement of at least one marsh species. So one example is given that of Maryland. One example is given of that of the marshes in Florida. So we can definitely choose. At least means one or more than one, right? C is a great inference, by the way. So C is the best option choice. Phragmites australis reed is rapidly taking over in Florida. Again, like, do you really want to choose this? Even if this is given, this is an explicit argument, right? So inference is something which is hidden. It's an unstated premise. I'll just write down the very definition of it. Inference is an unstated conclusion, right? Something which is not explicitly or directly mentioned in the passage. So for this question, the correct option is option C. All right. Now let's discuss the next passage. That was quick, full scorer, I think. And if you still feel that question 5 is difficult, I would say 5 and 6 is also not a bad score. All right. Now, again, the next passage here is almost taken from an editorial, right? And you go through the last 4 years of CLAT PYQs, and you'll understand that logical reasoning does ask passages, talking about recent issues, contemporary topics, especially topics like these. So let's start reading it. So it's essentially talking about the NEET and NET examination, a fiasco, the scam that happened, right? So I'll just quickly jump to the main points here. This is a deeply worrying trend for Indian higher education and society, right? And behind these examination scams lies something more pernicious. Pernicious is something more harmful, something more of a negative nature, which is the seductive allure of merit. So actually, we're now talking about the concept of merit as understood, right, by these exams. So why has meritocracy, right? Choosing people based on merit, if you're doing well academically, if you're just doing well on the job, and making those only as standards for selecting somebody, right? So why has meritocracy, and this in itself will tell you what the author wants to talk about for the rest of the passage, right? Why has it become so important to our lives? Right now, reasons are given. One, economic anxieties, right? Somebody is not doing well financially, wealth inequality. There are plausible explanations. So, in an unequal world, people are anxious to make it big, to secure a larger share of the social dividend. Fair enough, right? And however, there is more to this than just economic explanation. Another factor, and an important factor, because if you just read the way the author is wording this, you'll understand this too is an important factor, that people want to come across or they want to be seen as self-made, which is why a lot of CEOs would always want to, show themselves off as somebody who has come from a middle class background and a very frugal, simple, austere lifestyle, even when they are born into wealth and privilege. Because then this helps them preach that, success can come to anybody who tries. But then again, the author has another but here. So always pay attention to it. Is the success of an individual entirely because of his or her own doing, because of her hard work? So what the author is trying to say, are there no other factors that can be responsible or lead to an individual's success? What factors such as caste, class, race relevant, right? Privileged individuals, according to the author, they have more resources, opportunities, and networks that give them a head start already, right? And merit is also deeply entwined with cultural capital, okay? That creates a sense of belonging among individuals coming from similar backgrounds. So if you ask me, ma'am, what is cultural capital? Ma'am, I do not know what it means. See, the idea is already stated here. You don't have to really rack your brains and, now randomly assume facts. That which is given, just think of it only here. So cultural capital is more like an idea where a sense of belonging amongst the individuals exists, coming from similar backgrounds, which leads to a bias that significantly impacts many decisions and manifests in job interviews, right? So this, inherent bias that is happening, if not inherent, unconscious bias as well. Okay, let's read further. See, the passage is, I know, lengthy, but you can literally read this passage as well within 2 minutes, right? And therefore, this is what the author's final position on merit is, that you have to understand and interpret merit in a subjective framework. Look at other factors that can be responsible for it, right? So the acknowledgement of shared cultural capital influencing our perceptions of what qualifies as meritorious is necessary. Okay. Again, a very important piece, highlighted it here for you. Okay. Now, the author is talking more about other things that, the idea of merit actually varies from context to context. The idea of merit has been shaped by values and biases of each era, right? So it varies depending on the context. For example, in ancient societies, strength, military prowess was given priority, while Renaissance emphasized intellectual achievements. Now, today, the industrial age, it prioritized technical skills. And today, it's about educational qualifications, somebody's professional expertise, emotional intelligence, cultural awareness, right? Now, the author is pointing a problem here that standardized tests and interviews, right? They are also contingent about the idea of merit of the same, but they do not really help to evaluate an individual's characteristics that well, right? So, in a society where this meritocratic hubris prevails, the arbitrariness of talent and its relation with what the economy demands is glossed over, right? So, meritorious, the idea of being meritorious can vary from context to context. A person could be considered meritorious in one situation while lacking meritorious label, in another situation. So, because it's so random and arbitrary, that Friedrich and John Rawls reject the idea that economic rewards should reflect what people deserve, right? If you want, you can skip the last statement also. You can come back to it anytime. Always, I emphasize, except for narrative passages, try and, sort of practice reading passages so much that you're able to cherry pick important ideas. And you can intuitively assess that you can understand the passage without reading every word here. Okay. Let's focus on the questions one by one. Underlying assumption of the passage, very important topic for CLAT logical reasoning. Only individuals from privileged backgrounds succeed in life. See, this is not what the author is saying. Author is saying, but still there is an inclination towards the idea that privileged background people might still have greater chances of success. But he's not setting this in stone that only individuals from affluent backgrounds would succeed. So this is out, right? Merit is a universally agreed upon concept in modern society. See, it's already directly given in the passage that the idea of merit varies from place to place, context to context. So this too is out, right? And again, the author is actually going against the idea of standardized tests. So this too is out. The option which we are left with by default is option C, and that here is a correct assumption that according to the author, economic inequality is one of the reasons for the rise of meritocracy. If it wasn't one of the reasons for the rise of meritocracy, then obviously we wouldn't be talking about these problems in the first place. So I'm using the assumption negation technique here, all right? So that makes C the best option choice, all right? Let's take a look at the next question now. Inferred about merit from the passage. Okay. Is it based solely on an individual talent and hard work? Not given out. It is subjective, right? So it is influenced by subjective factors. Just mark B. You can solve this question through clear cut selection, right? Standardized tests are ineffective. They are not, So the author is actually going against the idea of standardized tests. The definition of merit has remained consistent. We have examples of, ancient times. We have the example of the industrial age. We have the example of Renaissance, where merit has sort of just had different definitions to it, right? So you can cancel D also. B is the best option choice for question 8. Now, what would be a reasonable course of action based on the passage's argument? This is more of an application-based question, but whenever you have to solve an application-based question, just keep in mind that you have to stay put within the data that's there. Stay limited to the data. So do you want to continue using standardized tests? No, he's against it. Develop more inclusive mechanisms for assessing merit, accounting for cultural capital and background. Do you remember I did highlight the light where it says that merit should be accounted for? Acknowledgement of shared cultural capital should also be there. Mark B is the correct option choice again. You can cancel C because of the quantifier only. And obviously, never choose an option wherein the author is saying, abandon this topic, let's not discuss this, let's not talk about it, leave it alone. Never choose such topics. They're just like very hollow, these options, okay? So cancel D as well. The best option choice here also will be option B. Okay. The next question, strengthen a question. What do you have to strengthen? The author's argument about how arbitrary merit is. Okay. So let's see an option which can give more support to merit being arbitrary in nature. So merit-based systems reward individuals with the most technical skills. CEOs with wealth and privilege tend to highlight their humble beginnings. Different societies value different attributes such as physical prowess or intellectual skills as merit, and C is the best option choice, not because it's the lengthiest, but because it does strengthen it. If you're able to show that merit has different definitions in different cases, it can have different values and ideas to it. It could be physical prowess, it could be somebody academically intelligent, etc. So if that's the case, then it only tells us that the idea of one merit, a single definition of merit, is really random. It's hollow, it's arbitrary, right? Best option choice is C. Option A actually weakens it in a way because it says that merit-based systems are able to reward individuals with the most technical skills, which mean we know that somebody who has the best technical skills is a meritorious individual. We already are giving one strict definition to it, so it weakens it, right? This is sort of irrelevant, okay? This might be true in the light of the passage, but it doesn't help strengthen the argument, right? And this also doesn't strengthen it at all because if they offer equal opportunities, right, equitable treatment is there, then how is it arbitrary at all? So best option choice is C. Next, again, you have to weaken the argument about the subjectivity of merit. Okay. Cultural capital plays a role in determining success in meritocratic systems. Standardized tests are designed to be free from cultural and social biases. Historical definitions of merit have shifted based. Privileged individuals have more resources to develop their talents. Now you have to weaken the argument about the subjectivity of merit. So, subjectivity of merit means that merit can have various attributes to it. It varies based on societies, different contexts. So yeah, now you have to weaken it. So if we are able to choose an option which shows that merit can have like a single way of assessing it, right? Then that would do our job. And therefore, the best option choice here is B. Standardized tests are designed to be free from cultural and social biases, which means if standardized tests are free from these biases, then they are able to evaluate an individual's merit properly. So merit is no longer subjective in nature. Let me tell you, this is an option which does not directly strengthen, directly weaken it, it indirectly weakens it. But at the same time, it's the only option that makes sense. Cultural capital plays a role, then it only is strengthening the subjectivity here, right? So it strengthens the subjectivity of merit. Historical definitions are shifting. This also strengthens the subjectivity because you have different definitions during different historical periods. Privileged individuals have more resources to develop their talents. This is not that related, okay? So best option choice is option B here, okay? This indirectly weakens it, but at the same time, it's the best option that we have. Let's take a look at the last question, which is what is a primary conclusion that the author wants to convey? Merit is an objective measure of an individual's abilities. No, the author believes in the subjectivity of merit. So this is out. Economic rewards should reflect what people deserve. This is something that it's mentioned in the passage that the author goes against the idea. He quotes two individuals also. Merit should be understood in a subjective and evolving context. There you have your correct option. Standardized tests and the only fair way. No, the author is again the idea of conducting standardized tests. So correct option is option C. So that was it. I hope you've understood every point. If you want any help with us, reach out to us. Hope you like the video. Any, clarifications, any doubts. If you really appreciated the session also, you can let me know in the comment section and stay tuned for more such practice sessions that are going to happen weekly from now on. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.